Well, good afternoon and welcome to the Greensboro Chamber of Commerce's Work at Home Wednesday call. I'm Deborah Hooper, the COO for the Chamber, and it's my pleasure to be your host today. We would love to have you also follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can find us at GSO Chamber for the latest information. We'll also continue to send out a post-call communication to our members with the recording of the call and any relevant links. If you're not a member and you're on the call, welcome. We love having you. Please know that all links to the resources and the recordings will be on our website at greensboro.org/COVID-19. And we do have an ask on every call of everyone. If you haven't yet, please fill out your 2020 U.S. Census form and encourage others to do the same. We need to make sure we have a strong completion rate here in Guilford County and for North Carolina so we can get the additional congressional seats and the additional federal funding that we need and deserve based on our growth since the last census back in 2010. I also want to thank our Circle of Champions partners who really support our programming year-round and enable us to bring programming like this to you today. So at the platinum level, we have a Legacy Federal Credit Union, Cone Health, Lincoln Financial Group, Reliant Federal Credit Union, and VF Corporation. And at the gold level, Navant Health. At the silver level, Global Brands Group, Kelly Office Solutions, Ralph Lauren, Staunton Capital, and Wake Forest Baptist Health. So we thank them. Well, late yesterday, we learned that Governor Cooper is lifting the stay-at-home order at 5 o'clock this Friday. And we're going to be operating under Phase 1 guidelines until 5 p.m. on May 22nd or until a new executive order is issued. So for many businesses and organizations that were not considered essential, we can look at going back to work. So as we began to think about what that looks like, the one overarching thing that all of us have to think about is how to provide a safe working environment for our employees in particular as we look to reopen our offices. So when we look at this topic, one of the things that we wanted to focus on today is how we go about cleaning and disinfecting our offices, right? Something really basic that we maybe take for granted, but boy, in this environment is oh so important. And I know our employees want to know that this is being done as well. And when you think about all of the ways that we will clean and disinfect, it also, my brain starts going to, well, how are we going to protect the office furniture, right? And also from an office furniture layout standpoint, how might we look at the layouts in our offices and come up with some ways that we can provide that appropriate physical distancing for our employees so that they feel safe, they feel comfortable coming back to work. So this is what we're going to talk about today. So let me introduce our speakers. Chris Cassidy is the founder of Empire Services, a commercial cleaning and janitorial company based in the Triad, and one of our valued chamber members. Chris is certified in infectious disease and infection control. So Chris, we have an informed, knowledgeable speaker on that part of our topic today, and I'm very excited about that. Also, as I said, we're going to think about how do we protect our office furniture and those wonderful surfaces that we've invested in, and also how we can look at the layout of our office furniture. So joining us to talk about this aspect of our topic is another valued chamber member business, Alfred Williams and Company. So on the call, we have Amber Brown, who is the market president for the Triad in Charlotte. We have Montgomery Morris, the director of market development for the Triad Market, and Catherine Thomas, the vice president of business development and marketing. So welcome everyone. We are so glad to have you with us. I do want to give everyone on the call just a brief reminder that if you have questions for our speakers, please put them in the chat room and they will be glad to answer them. All right, so Chris, we are going to get started with you. I am actually going to share your presentation, so if everybody would just bear with me just for a second. I'm going to pull it up for you. All right, Chris, we are ready to go. Take it away.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. As Deborah mentioned, my name is Chris Cassidy. I'm here to discuss how we're going to transition back to the workplace, how to clean and disinfect your office. Getting back to what we thought was normal. It may not be normal again, but we're gonna make a new normal out of this. Next slide.
All right. There we go.
So as Deborah mentioned, obviously Governor Cooper has initiated or is going to initiate the first phase beginning this week, and obviously there are going to be more phases to follow. And we need to really follow those guidelines. Those are going to be very important for mitigating the situation that we're in. You know, not doing what's instructed of us causes us more damage, more harm, and it keeps us out of the workplace longer. So obviously we want to drive that point home to your staff, just to know, listen, let's do everything that's required. Let's wear things that we're supposed to, let's social distance, and let's beat this thing together. Next slide. So with Governor Cooper having 3 phases of moving back into the workforce and going back in that environment, Empire Services has also developed a 3-phase steps further to get you back to a clean environment as well. The first phase being know the type of surface that you'll be disinfecting. And that's really important. If you don't know the type of surface, whether it be porous, non-porous, you could be trying to disinfect it incorrectly, and it may not be as effective as you think. Or you could be recontaminating, just depending on how you're doing things. Phase 2 is going to be locating your high touch zones, and then also putting on your PPE. That's very key to make sure we mitigate this thing correctly. In phase 3, we want to make sure that we thoroughly clean surfaces and dispose of dirty towels and used PPE. Next slide, please.
All right.
So going back to phase 1, knowing the surface that will be disinfected. What type of spacing do you have? And a lot of people, you know, depends on what office environment you work in or whom you work for, will tell you exactly how many people that you have around you. And obviously the more people around you, the higher the risk. So it's more important to do what's necessary, especially in those situations. If you'll excuse me, I want to try to move on. Okay. All right, so first thing, one of the first things you can do to help lower your risk of a surface-bound virus is to know that what areas and surfaces you are most likely to come in contact with. It's very important for a lot of us out there, not realizing the zone that we have to operate inside of. B is to determine if it has been recently disinfected. What we're seeing now, there are obviously a lot of people getting involved in wanting to clean and trying to clean areas and environments. So we want to make sure that we're not wasting good material on a surface that's already been taken care of or disinfected. We want to cover as many areas as possible, but we want to also garner the materials that it's needed to do the work effectively. So we don't want to waste anything, if that makes sense. See how often will the areas need to be infected. That's very key. That really depends on the traffic, the amount of touching that is possibly going on. If it's an area where you're working and you're by yourself, and you know, once you clean your area, you feel pretty good about it, you don't have a lot of traffic, that's fine. But if you work in an area where there's a lot of traffic, there's a lot of people walking through, then there's going to be a higher possibility that you will have something along those lines if there is someone that is infected in your area. So we want to make sure we're cleaning those areas and as often as needed. And D, are there any co-workers that might come in contact with areas after I disinfect them? That goes back to what I was saying before. Once you clean an area, If there is no traffic, if there's no possibility or risk of anyone coming to contaminating, then it will actually stay that way for a good period of time. So there's no risk as intense as it is if you have a lot of traffic, if that makes sense. Next slide.
Okay.
Thank you. Phase 2, locate your high touch zones and put on your PPE. This is 2 phases here. Whenever we are trying to get back into the workplace and clean those environments, what we call a high touch zone are going to be the areas, and I'll read over here to the side. A high touch area can include doorknobs, arms of reception area, chairs, elevator buttons, stair railings, common area telephones, restroom surfaces, coffee handles, and dispensers of water cooler handles. Those are the areas that we are always coming in contact with by and large. So we want to make sure that if those areas are in your area that you're going to take care of, let's make sure we do a really good job trying to clean it. Secondly, we're only safe as the equipment that we wear. So please practice safety and attention to detail when cleaning and disinfecting. Every spot that you miss is a potential threat to your ecosystem. So we want to make sure we put on the PPE. That's one of the things that just has become a standard uniform now, and I'm glad that everyone is really accepting of the fact. But we're going to continue that if we're going to still beat this thing in the long run. Next slide. And then phase 3, thoroughly clean surfaces and dispose of dirty towels and used PPE. And if you look at that first diagram, even with taking off the bio gloves, the nitrile gloves, depending on what type you wear, while taking those off, you want to make sure you remove those properly so that you don't recontaminate yourself, just in case you've got something on the gloves. And then obviously, once you get finished with it, you dispose of it in a waste receptacle properly. And then know how to properly clean is really important. So what is important is knowing how to remove and dispose of used PPE and cleaning materials. In some cases, the materials may be washed, but that's only advised if you're following the proper manufacturing guidelines on usage. And what I'm referring to there with microfiber cloths, those are used a lot of times in this mitigation, but they're also washed thoroughly after the fact. So next slide, please. And then phase 4, and I didn't list this up, so if phase 4 is one, if we have an incident where there is, extreme high risk, we have an individual who is suspected to have COVID-19 or been exposed to it, then we want to go a step further than the disinfecting, wiping out the things that you are doing normally in your office areas. We want to take it a step further, and we want to do electrostatic fogging or disinfecting. So that is something that I know most of you are probably hearing about, and you'll probably hear more about in the coming future. But this is a more complete way of disinfecting surfaces, and the way that it's done is pretty remarkable. How to get things to actually. Sorry, someone stopped my video. Are you still there, Deborah?
Yes.
Okay. Just keep going. You can still hear me, correct?
Yes. Thank you, Chris. Yes, we can.
Okay. No problem. But getting back to what I was saying, that's typically what happens whenever you have, like I said, exposure to that individual or individuals, and we want to do a more thorough disinfecting, covering all surfaces, top to bottom, and making sure that we communicate this virus at its core.
Okay. So, Chris, let me ask you this: are there who sets the guidelines for disinfecting spaces? Is there an organization that a cleaning service has to follow those authoritative guidelines for disinfecting?
Yes. Now, obviously, everyone is familiar with the CDC. They set a lot of the guidelines when it comes to mitigating how we interact with this virus. But the standards, we do have a standard, and it was dictated by the CDC and the EPA as far as the type of chemicals that can be used in those environments. But they have set a standard on how often things need to be done, the dwell time of the chemical that we use, and then the surface type.
Okay. Chris, just from the standpoint of being, the owner of Empire Services, what kind of conversations are your clients having with you right now about their office environments and what you're going to do and how you're going to go about doing it?
Well, they're very concerned, and the good part is that I have a really good relationship with all of my clients, and so they're not just willing to listen to conversation from me about this issue. They actually refer to me to get more information. It's my job to stay abreast on what the most current cleaning methods and techniques are in the industry, to make sure that I'm doing the best job that I can, and my team is doing the best job that they can do, to make sure we clean our surfaces correctly, and to ensure that this issue that we're dealing with now, COVID-19, is not an issue that keeps recreating itself, especially after we've gone in and we've done the things we need to do. So if we're following the guidelines that the CDC has set for us, then we should be right there at the point where we should not have any issues, but we can take it a step further. We want to add, if we want to go a little bit further, clean a little bit longer, cover more area, then that's fine. More is not going to hurt us in this situation.
Okay. Are there some aspects of, having a clean, disinfected office environment that some companies are more worried about than others? Like, is there a area of primary concern that companies are expressing to you?
Yeah, what I'm saying is the clients that have the extremely high traffic locations, their primary desire is to make sure that we find the best way to, one, slow down or deter as much of this threat as possible. So we want to look at all of the high touch zones. We want to look at how they have the clients, so the customers interacting with the staff, the location of things, positioning. I'm seeing that some of my clients have already repositioned the furniture in their buildings to accommodate more of a flow through, rather than people interacting and going back and forth amongst each other, at least while we're going through this pandemic.
And as the owner of this company, what do you have to do to protect your employees when they go into all these offices?
I have to stay well informed. I have to look for potential risks. I have to look for things that could possibly be an issue, not just for my client, but my staff as well. Making sure that they have their PPEs, that they're wearing them correctly, that they're disposing of them correctly, that we're using all of the recommended chemicals to clean in those areas, and then reinforcing that with training, because what I have to always do is train my staff on the latest things. I'm not just the type that I want to know it myself. I want to make sure that everyone on the team knows it, so we can be a better force to deal with when it comes to cleaning. So I do train a lot with my staff. I go over things with them weekly. Any updates, I make sure that I fill all of them in on it, and then I'm trying my best to stay abreast of everything according to the CDC guidelines.
Okay, and we're going to provide Chris's contact information to everybody, so it's on the screen right now, but please know that it will also be included in our post-call communication. So Chris, I'm going to transition over to our friends at Alfred Williams to talk about, all right, now we've talked about, that we're going to be cleaning, disinfecting. How do we go about protecting our furniture, and also looking a little bit more at how we may be rearranging our furniture to appropriately physically distance everyone in the office? So I'm going to ask Montgomery Morris if he will take it from here. Montgomery?
Thank you, Deborah. And as you mentioned, my name is Montgomery Morris, and I'm the Director of Market Development for the Triad office for Alfred Williams and Company. Wanted to thank the Greensboro Chamber, Deborah, David, and Brent for inviting us on to speak with you guys today. We were excited to do this, and we really appreciate the work that you all do to bring awareness and to help business leaders like those on this call to grow and keep work moving forward. So thank you for all the hard work that you're putting in. Can everyone see my screen here? Great.
Yes.
So piggybacking off of Chris's information here, I did want to talk first just about kind of an example, if you will, of what kind of some of the cleaning looks like for our furniture, and then protecting it. And there's a lot of information that kind of can feed into each office, and as well as feed into certain manufacturers. So it's really important to kind of piggyback off what Chris said here and know the surface you're cleaning. You really need to know the furniture as well. And that's not just the surface, but that's also the fabric and the metals that are a part of your furniture. All of those have finishes and dyes and all these certain materiality that goes with them. And then obviously each manufacturer is going to be done a little bit differently. So I would encourage that you do your homework, reach out to your furniture providers, reach out to the manufacturers in which you purchase the furniture, because they're going to be able to give you very specific guidelines and resources to make sure that you're staying either within your warranty, or that you're not putting any sort of substance on your furniture that could harm it or create issues down the road. We actually had a commercial real estate partner reach out to us yesterday talking about how they've had some customers use bleach on their work surfaces, laminate work surfaces, and now they're starting to peel and have issues. So that is one of the things we would recommend, that you avoid using really harsh chemicals like bleach. So make sure that you really kind of dig in and do your homework there, because it really can cause problems down the road and put you in a situation where you're destroying something that you invested a lot of money in. So we would be happy to help you with that or walk through that information. But a lot of times what you can do is you can actually figure out the manufacturer of your furniture by looking for a label either underneath one of the work surfaces, underneath a panel, or underneath the chair that your employees sit in. So I would recommend that you start by learning as much as you can about the furniture that you have before you start to apply disinfectants and other materials to it. So, and in this example here, we are the Herman Miller dealer for North Carolina, South Carolina, and Tennessee. This is an example of what Herman Miller puts out around their furniture that gives you a very specific list of those items that are accepted, as well as those items that they would that should be avoided. So you can see those here. Again, we're going to share our presentation with everybody, but this is just an example. We do encourage you to reach out to your own manufacturers. That being said, I want to take this opportunity as well just to kind of talk through some considerations that we've been encouraging our clients to take as people return to the office. One of the big things that we're obviously need to follow are some of the physical distancing guidelines set forth by the CDC, the WHO, as well as both our federal and state governments. So that 6-foot radius is actually shown here in all these different layouts. So it's really important that you kind of maintain some flexibility and you allow for people to kind of, whether it's phasing or coming in on certain days, certain weeks, but it's important that each organization and as business leaders, you kind of take a look and ask yourself questions about who's essential to the office, and making sure that you allow for them to have these guidelines and allow for them the ability to maintain this space. So here, what you've seen here is a benching application. We're recommending that you stagger those end users so that they're not facing each other face to face, and you're allowing for that six foot distancing. Now, in a 120-degree layout, as you can see here in the middle, again, it's a little bit easier, but you do need to make sure that you remove a chair or allow for that space in between. So there's a lot of different ways to do this, and we are strongly encouraging our customers not to go through some sort of expensive or expansive office overhaul. Instead, to do certain things, allow flexibility, allow people to work from home, and come up with temporary solutions. There's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of misinformation out there. And if you're not jumping at the first solution that says that it's gonna be the right fix, things are changing daily. So it's really important that you set something up temporarily and continue to learn and continue to seek advice from not only just your partners, but also seek advice and continue to gain advice from the healthcare professionals. Here are a few other workplace design considerations. One example that I really wanted to point out was the forward-facing orientation. Oh, excuse me. We actually just went through this ourselves as we prepare to return to the office in our showroom. We had a lot of our designers that were actually sitting face to face. And so what we've done is we've actually taken those tables and we've positioned them to all face one direction. That way we can allow for that 6-foot guideline and physical distancing, and then also allow for them to continue to have the workspace that they need to do their job effectively. So it's a great way to build that in and not lose space. Another kind of hot topic are conference rooms. And this is a difficult one because conference rooms, a lot of times you don't have necessarily the real estate to allow for those 6-foot guidelines. So we're encouraging folks to use those conference rooms for one of two ways. One, to either remove seating in it and put 1 or 2 chairs to be used as a temporary workspace, or to be used as a virtual conferencing station. This also can be used as well if you do need to have those face-to-face meetings. We suggest that you remove those chairs to, if it's a smaller room, obviously just to 2 chairs, or it's a larger conference room, 3 to 4 chairs to allow people to come in and meet face-to-face and keep that 6-foot distancing. Communication is key. It's very important to make sure that you're communicating to your employees. And it's also very important that there's a shared responsibility between employee and employer. A lot of this does boil down to human behaviors. And if our employers aren't taking these guidelines seriously, then it defeats the whole purpose. So it's very important to not only visually communicate, but also to communicate early and often what the expectations are and what those responsibilities that you expect for them to follow. So we've started to set up some visual communication within our offices all across North and South Carolina, that exactly stating, okay, hey, this is what your expectations are. And they also serve as those visual reminders, especially if you want to implement a no handshake policy, or leading into my next slide here, you want to start to set up hand sanitizing and cleaning stations. This is a great way to remind individuals that this is extremely important. This is one of the 3 main things that the CDC has said will stop the spread of COVID-19. So setting up these hand sanitizing stations, having signage, encouraging people to wash their hands both before and when they leave the office will really make a big difference. And then screens. We're getting a lot of question about screens. And I would imagine most of you have seen them in the grocery stores, restaurants, bank tellers. They're being set up often. There's a lot of information out there that states that we're just not exactly sure this is really a solution that helps prevent the spread of the virus. It does, however, set up a psychological and a physical barrier that reminds us to kind of keep our distance between whether colleagues or visitors. So it does serve a purpose in keeping kind of a visual barrier, but it doesn't necessarily help us when it really comes down to the science of preventing the spread of the virus. So we're encouraging our customers and our partners to cautiously look at this as a solution, but at the same time, it's not something that we think anyone should spend too much money on just to set something up, because it might not be necessarily a truly viable long-term solution.
Okay.
And as Deborah stated too, if you'd like to have a deeper conversation with any of us, please feel free to reach out. She's going to share my contact information, but feel free to ask questions in the meantime.
All right, Montgomery, thank you too. I want to open it up for our callers to see if they have questions that they want to place in the chat room. Let me see if there are any. Oh, here's one for Chris. Chris, if we can unmute you, is there a best way to safely clean technology like keyboards and screens, computer screens?
Say that one more time, right?
Is there a best way to safely clean technology like our computer keyboards and our computer screens? What do you recommend?
Yeah, those are very particular because of obviously the electronics But you just want to use sanitizing wipes if you're in the workplace. That's what I see most of the clients are relying on, and it actually does work well. But I would recommend that you have a specific method on how you do that to make sure you cover the entire surface area and do a really good job of it. What you don't want to have is a lot of saturation getting down in between the keys because that could obviously damage your keyboard. But you do want to have a good saturated sanitizing wipe as you go over it and make it a continuous motion. But do try to cover all of the surface area as much as possible. Again, as I said before, you don't want to recontaminate areas. So make sure you're doing a thorough job of cleaning them as well.
Okay, good advice. I am going to open this up to any of our speakers who would like to take this question. Do we need to be concerned about floor coverings like carpets in our spaces and how we might go about keeping those clean and disinfected? Thoughts?
You asking me?
Chris, please, yes, please take that question if you would like to.
What I do recommend to my clients that do ask that, I mean, obviously cleaning the carpet is going to do just as good a job as any on taking care of that. But I wouldn't sit there and spray a whole bunch of disinfectant on the carpet. I would recommend cleaning it probably more often than what you are accustomed to. But just making sure we're doing everything correctly. You know, if there's a risk, or you think that there's a risk of something being on that carpet or has been exposed to someone who has been suspected of COVID-19 or actually diagnosed with that, take the time to get the carpet clean. Let's go the extra mile, but as needed. You know, we don't want to overkill something. We want to do things as is required, but don't just wear yourself to death about it. Like I said, it's not likely that it will exist very long in a carpet environment, and you're not going to likely be down there on the carpet as much either. But like I said, do clean the carpet if you are suspecting that.
Okay. Montgomery, anything that you want to add, or anyone from Alfred Williams on that topic?
I can add if you would like. This is Amber Brown. So we've actually, Montgomery spent a lot of time talking about materials, and one of the benefits that we've had with our manufacturers is that they've worked in healthcare environments for the last 60 years. And so there's a lot of information that's still being learned about the virus and how the virus lives on materials. And so some of the materials that are common in a healthcare environment, you may start to see more frequently in a corporate environment. I mean, and again, this is all, again, short-term, mid-term, long-term. So even with your floor covering, they're still learning. So I think that we'll probably anticipate some more guidelines on that for now, but I would say, just echo what Chris said on the, I mean, you need to have some schedule of cleaning on a frequency. Certainly they're learning a lot about how the virus is transmitted and a variety of surfaces.
Okay.
Definitely, I want to
Chris,
talk,
go ahead, please.
Something that Amber said. We are still learning, and there are a lot of things, and you just want to make sure we're not, saying the wrong things out there. You don't want to overly say things. Stick within the guidelines. If you can mimic or say what the CDC is saying and kind of conform to that ideology and not what's been expanded on and what's been rumored to out and what you hear out in your environments. Just stick to the guidelines, because the professionals, the experts are just that, and they're working tirelessly at finding all the answers, and they're giving them to us just as quick as they can get them. But let's do our part and support them in what they're asking us to do. The social distance is absolutely important. Making sure that we're protecting ourselves, our environments, and those around us.
Chris, I think that is absolutely sound advice. And I want to ask our friends from Alfred Williams if they also have just a quick wrap up, if you will, of recommendations that you have for us as we look to reopen our offices and have a safe working environment and protect our investments from the standpoint of office furniture and fixtures and that sort of thing.
I'll echo Chris's sentiment there. There's a lot of misinformation out there. So it's easy to kind of go down a rabbit hole and get lost in something that may or may not really be the greatest long-term solution or solution at all. So we are encouraging a lot of our partners and customers to exercise a little bit of patience because we are learning on the fly. This is a very good situation. And we are fortunate that Herman Miller, our manufacturer partner, has a presence in the Asian and European markets. So they're a little bit ahead of us and are quickly kind of sharing back a lot of the lessons learned from them to help us kind of guide and help our clients make the right decisions for them. So just because you hear or see something doesn't necessarily mean that it's the right solution for you. Not all workplaces are the same. Not all furniture is the same. So our kind of advice is do your homework, figure out who the manufacturers are, figure out all the materials that you're working with. That's a great way to start when it comes to protecting your investment. And then as far as making it safe for employees to return to the office, there are some really great temporary solutions. And if you can set people up to where they can maintain those safe 6-foot distances, they'll be able to return to work. And hopefully before soon enough, we'll start to get back to more of a form of normalcy, if you will.
All right. Amber, anything that you'd like to add?
Yeah, the only thing that I would say is just make sure you have a plan and make sure that you're looking for, ways that you can adapt your plan as your team comes back in. And when it comes to your interiors and your furniture and how that's arranged, part of the reason we phase people in is so that you can find those friction locations. And so you want to know what those places are. And then to Chris's point about the high touch, you have high touch areas inside your office that are also your office furnishings. So you need to pay special attention to those. And then just make sure that, as Montgomery said, be patient and adapt. You're going to make changes. And as we get new information, you just have to take it all in. And I think, communicating that with your teams and making sure that they understand as Montgomery said, shared responsibility. This is a shared responsibility when we all go back into the physical workplace.
All right, Catherine, how about you? I think we're going to have to get you off mute.
Gosh.
There you go.
Thanks to you again for this opportunity, and please let us know if we can be a resource for any of you. As Montgomery said, we're learning every day. We're happy to help in any way, and we value your time and your time to listen to us today. Thanks.
Oh, thank you. I think you all have provided great advice in helping all of us provide a safe working environment for our employees. And I know that we are going to take your slide decks, and again, we're going to share this information in a post-call communication and also post it on our website so that it's readily available to anyone that wants to access it. And we greatly appreciate that all of you were with us today, and you've just provided incredible expertise on this topic in very different ways, but it all fits together. And so thank you for being with us today. So I know that I'm looking forward to returning to my office on Monday. And so this is really important to all of us at the Greensboro Chamber as we look to reopen the offices of the Greensboro Chamber of Commerce as well, and certainly be a leader in our community and help set the example of how we can, appropriately, safely get back to work. So this is a very important topic for us as well. Thank you all for joining us today. And again, please join us tomorrow at 3 o'clock for our Think Ahead Thursday with Luann Flanders-Steck, our Executive Vice President of Entrepreneurship for Launch Greensboro. Sean Straub with Alt HR Partners will be joining her again to provide guidance on the Family Medical Leave Act and its new emergency FMLA provisions. She's going to discuss its impact on small businesses, as well as how all this relates to the receipt and the repayment of our PPP funds. So we'll see you back here tomorrow at 3 o'clock, and we hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye, everybody.